Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and if you're new here, welcome. I am a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam. And don't forget to put that bell button on so you can be one of the first ones here. Today's topic is a super important one because it's on guilt and shame. And guilt and shame is something that really affects people's lives in the worst way possible. It completely alters their life so they're not able to live the life that they are meant to live. So guilt and shame are something that gets confused a lot. So let's talk about guilt first. So guilt is when you feel like you did something wrong. Guilt is our moral compass. When we do something against our values, we then will feel guilt. So your values, what you feel is right and wrong, is taught at a very young age by your parents. So when you do things against that right and wrong, when you do things like you steal or you hurt someone's feelings, you say something hurtful, or you cheat, you were taught that that was wrong, so then you'll feel guilt. Now, if you grew up in an abusive home or you are very codependent, you're a people pleaser, you will experience false guilt. So you will experience guilt all the time. And that's because if you're codependent, you worry about other people and hurting other people. You're worried about their feelings. And when you grow up in an abusive environment, you are guilted all the time, where you are taught to feel guilty about things that you shouldn't feel guilty about. You are taught that if you take care of yourself or if you do something against your abuser, you're doing something wrong. So again, it goes into that codependency of worrying about someone else's feelings. That's because your abusive parent has used guilt as a way to manipulate and control you. For instance, let's say you want to hang out with your friends and your abusive parent says, hey, listen, you always hang out with your friends, you never hang out with me, you never spend time with me. You are then made to feel guilty, like you're doing something wrong when you're not. You're a kid, you're allowed to go hang out with your friends. So it's used incorrectly. And I have more on false guilt, which I'll leave right here. You can watch at the end of this video. So when people feel guilty, they'll deal with it in two ways. They will either own it and try to make amends, so they'll go and apologize, they'll ask, what can I do? And they will try to deal with the fact that they feel like they did something wrong. And then they are able to release that guilt. They're able to no longer feel that guilty because they felt like they dealt with it. Or if you don't own what you did, you don't take responsibility for it, it will then come out in other ways. It will come out with you not able to move on, it will come out in projection, and it will turn into shame. Now, going into shame, which is much deeper, it's the feeling that you are wrong. Guilt is actions. Like I said, it's you feel like you did something wrong. Now shame is there's something wrong with you. You are worthless. You feel empty. You feel like there's something wrong with you. You're a bad person. You are not enough. That's what shame feels like. So where does shame come from? Shame comes from your subconscious beliefs. It's things that you were heard over and over when you were a child. Or it was things that have happened to you as a child which made you feel shameful. This is why it's very common that narcissists deal with deep, deep shame, because they dealt with something that then caused them to feel shame, and they're not able to realize that it's shame, and it comes out in other ways because things, they get stuffed down, they have to come out in other ways. So how shame can come out is it can come out in anxiety, it comes out in projection, it comes out in depression, it comes out in eating disorders, it comes out in addiction, which studies have shown that the biggest reason for addiction is shame. It comes out in lack of motivation. It comes out in being very toxic, where you project and you think that the other person is doing these things because you're not dealing with your shame. It can also come out with you avoiding your feelings, becoming emotionally unavailable. And it could come out with you trying to hide. So you may try to hide things. Hide yourself, hide things about you. Or it could come out with you overly apologizing, not people pleasing, overly apologizing. I'm sorry I'm this way, I'm sorry this happened, I'm sorry. So this comes from those childhood things that you have dealt with. For instance, let's say when you were a child, you went to your parent and you were really sad and you were looking for their comfort, and they shooed you away, or they told you not to cry, don't be a baby, that's no reason to cry, you now feel shame. You feel like there's something wrong with you. Why couldn't they comfort me? Why couldn't they validate me? That has now become the wiring in your brain that there's something wrong with you, that your parent couldn't be there for you. Or for instance, you are gay and you don't feel like there's anything wrong with it, but your family does. You now feel shame about it. You feel bad about yourself. Why can't my family accept and love me? What's wrong with me? What did I do? Or with food. Food is a big one where there's a lot of shame, especially in abusive households. Like if you go and maybe get another helping, they're like, what if someone else wanted it? Why do you eat so much? You now feel shame, like you're not worth food. You don't deserve that food. You internalize, like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I deserve that helping? This all happens in childhood because when you're a child, you cannot reason and rationalize. So when something happens, you can't look outside of yourself. You can't understand that, your mom is this certain way, and you can't understand that maybe this person's going through this certain thing, or it's not personal, it has to do with them. You're not able to reason. And so because of that, you internalize it and you think, it's me. I'm the cause of it. I made them angry. If I wasn't like this, then maybe they wouldn't behave like this. And so you take that into adulthood. Now that's the wiring that's in your brain, that when something happens, you're bad, you're worthless, you're not enough. Now this will cause you to feel unlovable, feel like you're morally wrong, like you're disgusting. You'll feel all these things, all this shame, because of that wiring. Because you think that when things happen, you're a bad person. Or maybe when things don't happen that you want to happen, it's because you suck. You're a bad person. You're not worth it. You don't deserve it. And that's why it completely alters your life and your ability to do things, because your deep beliefs that you're not worth it, you're unlovable. And so when you believe that, you now act as if it's true. You now don't go after the things that you want. You now are afraid of things because of that shame belief. Or maybe you're afraid to feel your feelings. You don't feel like it's okay to feel feelings because you're ashamed to believe that feelings are for babies or for women or whatever it is. You don't feel like you're allowed to have those feelings, so you don't allow them. And then you stuff them down, and then you become angry, and then you feel more shame because you reacted off of that anger. It's a constant cycle. Now, you don't necessarily have to come from an abusive background to struggle with shame. You could have really loving, great parents, but because they're human and they make mistakes, they still may do things wrong to cause you to feel shame. Like for instance, maybe there was a time when your dad said he was going to go to your baseball game and he didn't show up. You then may feel shame. And so, it's not because he was abusive, it's because you couldn't understand that maybe he was really busy and it had nothing to do with you. He didn't sit down and talk to you and be like, hey, listen, I'm sorry I didn't show up to your game. It had nothing to do with you. I just was busy with work or whatever it is. Or your mom, she maybe didn't have very emotionally available parents, so she didn't know how to emotionally be there for you. Now you feel shame as a child because you're like, oh, there's something I'm doing wrong. My mom can't validate me. And then there are those abusive parents where they overly make you feel shame and they cause you to be codependent, or they cause you to overly people please to get that validation. So how do you heal from this? The first thing is that you have to recognize these thoughts you have and be very self-aware and do a lot of self-check-ins. So you have to be aware when you are having these thoughts of feeling worthless, or you're having these thoughts of you're not feeling good enough, or you're having these negative thoughts about yourself. A good way to see that you're shaming yourself is when you say, I should have done this, I should have done that. Should is shitting all over yourself. That is the most shameful thing you could say to yourself. It's beating yourself up for something in the past. What you need to make sure that you don't beat yourself up for the past. So you want to be very aware of the things that you're telling yourself. And if you have a hard time being aware, then you want to ask yourself a lot of questions. So when you're feeling bad, you're feeling negative, that's your cue to ask yourself, hey, what's going on? What am I telling myself right now? What's the story that's playing? You know, what's stopping me from doing this thing right now? Why am I avoiding X, Y, and Z? You want to ask yourself a lot of questions to get to the root, because that's so important. Get to the root of what's going on, because when you get to the root and you're aware, you then can do something about it. The next thing is that you want to acknowledge, own it, and be compassionate. So if you are struggling with guilt and you did something wrong, own it. Say, you know what, I did this thing. A lot of times ego will stop us from admitting when we did something wrong because we don't want to experience that shame. So we're like, nope, it has nothing to do with me. You know, you did it, or like, there's nothing wrong with what I did. You're so afraid of feeling that shame or feeling bad about yourself. So you need to remind yourself, like, I did something, but my behavior does not define my worth. I can make mistakes and it does not mean I'm a terrible person. I am only human. I'm going to make mistakes. That's where that compassion comes into play. It's okay that I messed up. It's okay that I stayed in bed for 3 days in a row. It's okay that I did X, Y, and Z. You're allowed to be compassionate towards yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're excusing yourself. You're allowed to say, you know what? I was having a rough day and it's okay that I did this. You need to validate your feelings, because your feelings were not validated in the past. You're allowed to feel how you're feeling. It's so important to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Feel those feelings. Say, I feel like shit. I feel sad. I feel down. I'm allowed to feel this way, because the only way you can grow is by admitting how you're feeling and allowing yourself to feel that way, and stop running from it or stop avoiding it. And it's important when you're validating your feelings and having compassion, don't judge them. That's the whole thing with compassion, is you feel it without judgment. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way. Don't tell yourself you're a baby. Don't tell yourself the things that you heard when you were a kid. Allow yourself to feel this way. And treat yourself the same way you would treat a friend or a little kid. Hey, it's okay that you're feeling this way. Hey, I understand that you're feeling a little bit down because you're disappointed because you didn't get the good news that you were wanting. Or you made a mistake, you cheated. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Or maybe you're not the weight you want to be at. Hey, it's okay. That's perfectly fine. The next thing is you need to change the language you use and what you tell yourself, and you need to nurture and parent yourself. So you need to talk to the inner child, and you need to make sure to reaffirm the opposite of what you've always been told, or that negative voice that plays in your head, that wiring, that you're worthless, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this. You need now to reverse it and tell yourself, I do deserve to have the life I want. I do deserve to open my own business. I do deserve to have kids. I still am worth what I want. And the biggest thing that counteracts shame is being proud of yourself. Reminding yourself of the things you did rather than what you didn't do. What have you done in your life? What have you accomplished? Be proud of yourself. Validate yourself. It's not just important to validate yourself in those negative moments. Validate yourself in the positive moments too, when you have done something you're proud of. And then at the end, you know, I have a lot of clients that will tell me, but like, what if I always excuse myself? What if I don't improve? Then you can ask yourself, what did I learn? What do I want to do to grow and change? That is completely changing the language, so you're looking forward to it rather than being like, oh, I suck, I'm never gonna achieve what I want, I'm worthless, like I don't deserve people in my life. It's the complete opposite. You're looking forward to it. You're thinking about what can you learn, what can you change, what can you do. It's motivating rather than demotivating. So it's super important that you change all that language to being more, use that reparenting language. I love you no matter what. You can make mistakes, but I will love you. Those are the things that you should have heard as a child. That's what you need to tell yourself now. Whatever you didn't hear, you need to tell yourself now. And then the last thing is, like, if you have done something wrong, you need to make amends. You need to apologize. You need to own it. I did cheat. I did steal. I did drugs and it hurt my family. You need to own what you did. It doesn't reflect you and your worth. It's just you did those things and you have to own it, and you have to go and apologize. You have to ask, how can I make amends? What can I do that will get your trust back? What can I do that will help you? You have to let down that ego sometimes and just own it. Like, I did this and it's okay. And like, I'm gonna forgive myself, because that's also the other part of it. You need to forgive yourself, but you also have to own it too, and not just excuse it and not just try to turn it around. Say like, I did it, what can I do to change it? And then going back, you know, forgive yourself. You can't punish yourself forever. that's keeping you in that shame. That is not helping you to live the life that you deserve to be living. So forgive yourself. It's okay to make mistakes. You are a human that deserves compassion no matter what you have done. So make sure that anytime you're feeling shameful, recognize it and change that language and be very loving and compassionate, and then ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do to change this? It's okay to make mistakes. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with someone you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. The root of the issue. Why did I completely forget what I was doing? I just stopped mid-sentence. What the hell is coming out of the sky? The whole entire time I got Frederick over here, like poking out. I don't even know. So when people feel guilty, they'll do it. I felt like I was like your loving mother, just trying to smuggle you in love.